One of the first things I ask people when they say, "Hey, I think I want to crowdfund," I say, okay, who are 5 people in your life right now that you could ask for money? And if you can't come up with those five, like right there, it's going to be really hard for you to raise, $10,000, $20,000 from the people you know. Crowdfunding, in essence, is raising tiny little bits of money from the people in your life. And that can be, coworkers, mom and dad, family, cousins,
Look at you, sir.
friends of friends of friends. Um, and there are a lot of different ways to crowdfund.
I wanted to have you on to talk about another way to access capital for businesses. What we've done so far is we've gone a more traditional route with these conversations. So we've brought on people from that have a lot of experience in the banking industry. We've brought on experts that are currently working at banks and that specialize in SBA lending. And all of these are really important and powerful things. But there are other avenues to access capital that exist now that have never really existed before. So I wanted to have you come on and talk to us and share a little bit of your insight when it comes to crowdfunding. What does it mean? How can businesses leverage it? And we'll dive into the different types and all of that.
Yeah. So, first of all, I love that you're talking about kind of a capital mix because very rarely is a business funded in like one beautiful, oh, yeah, we got a loan to fund our business. Amazing. Much more likely it's, we got the loan from the bank, we got the loan from grandma, we crowdfunded for $10,000, we, got this grant from the city. So, it's much more realistic to view your kind of funding journey as okay, what are all the different options I have? How can I mix all those together in a beautiful way? So crowdfunding specifically, I actually hate the name crowdfunding because I find that's kind of a misconception because what you're really doing is funding small amounts from friends and family.
Mm.
There is no beautiful anonymous crowd out there that wants to give you their money. Like that just
There's
doesn't
not?
there's not. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist.
Wrap the episode. We were here for a different reason, Joe. All right, lay the truth. I appreciate it. We want to get to the heart of things and to blow away the misconceptions about these things because I think that that's exactly what the conception of crowdfunding is that I
Yes.
put this out there, I make a social media campaign, and then people are so in love with my idea that they want to fund me to go do it.
And that would be amazing. I would love that to be
Me
true.
too.
But I think one of the first things I ask people when they say, "Hey, I think I want to crowdfund," I say, okay, who are 5 people in your life right now that you could ask for money? And if you can't come up with those five, like right there, it's going to be really hard for you to raise, $10,000, $20,000 from the people you know. So crowdfunding, in essence, is raising tiny little bits of money from the people in your life, and that can be, coworkers, mom and dad, family, cousins,
Look at you, sir.
friends of friends of friends, and there are a lot of different ways to crowdfund. I think we can get into that now. I mean,
Sure.
there are your kind of more just like asks for favors. We call that donation crowdfunding. That's kind of your GoFundMe's where you're just saying, hey, maybe you already run a business and you hit some hard times and you need some money to get out of that hard time.
Got it.
And that is essentially just you're using your goodwill. You're saying, okay, you guys know me, you like me. I need some help right now. Can you spot me? So that is like kind of the least, involved because you're
Mhm.
really just, hey, who do I know that wants to help me?
Right.
Let's ask them.
Have you seen when it comes to that before we move on to the
Yeah.
next one? One of the things that concerned me about this, and I have hesitated bringing it up with even some of my clients that come in for the SBDC, is it a sign if you're reaching out to people and you're letting them know that you're trying to raise money because you're in a hard time, like it creates a certain perception of your business. You're like,
It can.
yeah,
No, I mean, that's definitely a risk. And I think that's where, the storytelling aspects really come into play.
100%.
And I think, figuring out how to, the, to be frank with you, when I see that
Yeah.
used most is when things are out of people's control. And they
Yeah.
explain that. They say, hey, our basement got flooded. It was a plumbing issue.
Brilliant.
And we need, $20,000 because the insurance only covered some of these repairs. And we're using our goodwill. So I think
That's a smart play.
yeah, that's a smart play. And it
Yeah.
might not be such a smart play to be, hey, I, made some bad real estate investments and now I want my friends to help me get out of it. That's not going to play well. That is going to make you seem kind of scammy and like, oh, we don't
Yeah.
want to give them our money.
Right.
So it all comes down to the story that you're able to tell. If you have a good, compelling story, then you can maybe rely on just that goodwill you've built.
Yep.
And in the absence of that, then you look at your other forms of crowdfunding. And I think the one that people are most probably familiar with are rewards-based crowdfunding. That's when, people give you money and they expect some sort of reward. Usually that's, your product, if you're making a product, or credits for your service.
Mm.
Sometimes it can be as simple as, a thank you or a shout out in a newsletter. But these are kind of your Kickstarter and your Indiegogo. And I think this form of crowdfunding is really what popularized it. Because it makes a lot of sense to people. I
Mhm.
pledge that I'm going to give $100 to this business. And then when they make this, cool board game that I'm excited about, I'm going to get that board game and I'm going to get it before everyone else. So that's why I
So
really want to contribute.
and that makes sense, especially from the business side, because you're able to still offer something in return for it, and it's something that you were going to do anyway, right? Like you're like I'm
Yeah.
gonna make this board game anyway, and but I can't actually make them unless I get this money.
And
It's
I think that's the beauty of it. It's almost like collecting pre-orders. You're
right,
just like, oh, I'm proving my concept as I'm fundraising
right.
because people are only going to give to the campaign if they're interested in the final product itself.
And so it makes sense. It's really good for people to be aware of this, especially in the beginning stages, because they can incorporate it into the actual planning, like the
Yeah.
financial planning aspect. A lot of people will see working with a financial institution as like, okay, I'm building the business plan. I need to go prepare to basically pitch myself and my business to these banks to try to get this money. And this is again, like I was speaking about in the beginning, these are like the traditional ways that you think about financing your business when I have very few people that come in here that are even asking, let alone thinking about how to incorporate it in the startup phase of their business. I think that there's a conception that, the most times that I've heard about it are people that are struggling, that are in a place and like, I've got to find a way and the bank's not going to give me any money and I need to find a way to raise this capital, and
Yeah.
I've heard about this thing crowdfunding. But if you establish that, if further establish that goodwill with people in the beginning through offering specialties, early bird, whatever, these special products, or maybe like your name gets put on a brick that goes on our wall, those kinds of
Yeah,
things.
those little things that really
Yeah.
impact people can be really
Yeah.
powerful. And I think also, I mean, you do a lot of marketing tasks in crowdfunding. Crowdfunding really is the combination of marketing and fundraising because in order to run a successful raise, you have to know, what is the message of this product? What are its key, features? How am I going to communicate that? Do I need to build an email list so that I can,
Right.
right now be emailing people about my campaign, but really I'm learning the skill and developing that routine that is actually just an essential marketing task of the business.
Yeah. And then you're done ahead of time.
Exactly, and you got some money from it.
Exactly. Then yeah, and that is powerful. That's really good.
And then I don't wanna get away from because I have 3 big,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ways to crowdfund, so that was kind of rewards, that's
Okay.
kind of the more. And then the last one is investment crowdfunding, which is when you are raising money from people with the intent of paying them back. And I think a lot of people, when I ask them that question, who are 5 people that you wanna ask for money? They get really nervous and like, I
Right.
don't wanna ask anyone for money. And then if you reframe that question, you say, what are 5 people that you wanna pitch an investment opportunity to? Then they can come up with 5 people very quickly. They can say,
Right.
okay, yeah, I'm much more comfortable there. So investment crowdfunding is essentially there's lots of different ways to structure it, but usually I see it as, you give me $100 and I will pay you back in 36 months at an 8% interest rate. And it's essentially, for businesses where that traditional capital route isn't really a good option. Maybe it's a
Mhm.
little speculative, maybe it's some new technology or the bank just doesn't seem that interested.
Mhm.
You can essentially have your friends and family be your bank. And I think that a lot of people don't even really realize that's an option. So there's definitely a need for some market education, not just for business owners, but also for them to be able to go out to their friends and family and say, hey, this is an investment and you don't need to invest the whole $10,000.
Right.
I just need, 100 or 200 from you. And when I pay you back at my 8% rate, you're going to get 216.
Right.
So those
And
are
it's
kind of the 3 big ways.
and it all works very similar it, to how it would work when you're communicating with a bank. Right,
Yeah,
in the same sense.
you're
So
pitching.
so exactly, and you're not, and to the point. I think the important part of it is to not be nervous for people that are unfamiliar with this. That everything that we're talking about are things that you've already considered, that you've already thought about, you've already talked about. It's just a slight shift in perspective. It's like you don't have to go to these gatekeepers with these giant glass doors that you got to go in and sit down, and then they go through your personal financial statements and stuff. Like certain of your friends and family members are going to want to see
I was about to say
something.
it does get rid of some of that gatekeepers, and there's another perspective where it does create a lot of
A lot of
gatekeepers
them, but
because now you're
on a smaller
on a smaller
scale.
scale and gatekeepers who know and like you and
Yeah.
I believe in you as a person, we hope.
Well, you think about the consolidation of risk,
Yeah.
right? If the bank is funding $250,000 versus 2,500 people that are funding $250,000,
Which is
it's
a crazy.
which is
That's a lot of people going on.
which is a lot of people. But just for the scope of what we're talking
Yeah.
about, just like the basic premise, it's like what you're diversifying or you're spreading out the risk, right? Instead of
Yeah.
it being all under one roof, so you have to make this really big, grand, pitch in order for them to be like, yeah, this seems legit. Like we can fund this. You're making a pitch of a much smaller percentage to somebody that you know. So then it's not somebody you don't know, it's somebody you know.
Hmm.
And you're asking for a lot less than you would be
Exactly.
in from one place.
And you're really like I use the example of restaurants a lot. When restaurants crowdfund to open a new location or to, have expanded hours or something, guess who their best customers are? The people who donated to that crowdfunding campaign. So it can really strengthen a business's position overall to have their community literally invested in the business.
Think about the way it feels to be that customer.
Yeah, it feels
Like you're in,
amazing.
like you love this restaurant, you really enjoy the food, you go there with your friends like every other weekend, every weekend, and then an opportunity comes up for you to support them beyond just patronizing.
Hmm.
You can actually help them either through a hard time or through opening up another store.
Yeah.
And that connection that you then feel with it, especially like you said, I'm so glad that you brought this up, especially when the business understands storytelling and
Mhm.
understands how to bring you along for the journey. Like we're not just asking for your money. We want you to be a part of what we're building. Like who wants to join us in a part of this journey? And you can really work on the storytelling aspect of it and make people feel like they're with you. Like,
Yeah.
and so then you go to these new, and that makes sense because then how likely are you to continue to go back? Like, I'm kind of a part of this.
Yeah,
Like,
if I don't go back, like it's my money on the
Right.
line right now. Like, of course I'm gonna go eat there. And I think that storytelling is so key in the beginning stages of when you maybe just have this idea for the business and maybe you want to crowdfund it. That's when you start reaching out to your network and telling them that, like, oh, I have this idea, but I know it's gonna be expensive and I'm really into it, but like I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Like that is part of the storytelling. And then you
Mhm.
go through the campaign and the raise and you do some really compelling storytelling there of, this is gonna work. This is the vision I have. This is, how I'm gonna get it done. And then you have the after where you get to tell the story of I'm like so appreciative of everyone who has come out and helped me with this campaign and please come into the restaurant.
Mhm. Are there mechanisms by which that are built into some of these crowdfunding platforms where you could deliver personalized messages to the people that supported you, like through them? I think about if I had 15 friends and family that supported, and I wanted to deliver to them directly like a video that was curated that I made specifically for them. Like, can I do that through platforms exist, or is that something that is more like create it, send it via email, or whatever the case may be?
Well, I mean, I won't give you a yes is the short answer.
Okay.
That's totally possible on these platforms,
Okay.
but I would challenge any business owner to take it away from the platform and work that into their just overall marketing mix, basically. So, if you wanted to send a video to your supporters, put them into whatever you're using for email marketing,
Right.
tag them as, crowdfunding campaign supporters,
Then
and
you're
then
at-
send them there so that they are all within the business's, marketing infrastructure.
Right. And then they're getting highlighted as in front of like a group of people,
Yeah.
and so they're like you're being acknowledged in front of a group. And so you get that like, oh man, like I just got a little famous. I got a little spotlight. Like that's nice. That's nice. No, that's really interesting. It's how to continue to take the different parts of the crowdfunding journey and to continue to reinsert them and reinvest them into your business, like into your marketing plan, like you
A
said, into your
hundred
marketing
percent.
mix. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who want to do crowdfunding, they realize very quickly that they need to set up that just good marketing practices already for their business. But now, because I want to raise from people and I want to, manage a bunch of different relationships, I really need to get that set up, not just for my business, but for the raise as well. So I think that, you know, similar to like a business plan competition makes you write a business plan. It's like
Right.
wanting to crowdfund makes you make a really good marketing strategy because you have to learn very quickly, okay, how am I going to really reach out to people and give my message to them?
That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm learning so much right now. I'm trying to process this because I'm not there's a reason why I want to bring in experts from across these different fields and people that have been thoroughly trained and understand the industries, because I'm jack of all trades, king of none, but like really it's we all know the things that we know, which is
Exactly.
missing 99.9% of the rest of the world. And
Yeah.
so I'm really happy that you're here to shine some light on the crowdfunding game.
Happy to be here. And I think that it's you're totally not alone. I think very few people have an understanding. I think most people when they think of crowdfunding, they think of, Kickstarter, and
Yep.
that's where their brain turns off. And
Mhm.
maybe they've given to a campaign, they've
Right.
probably never run one.
Right.
And they just don't realize that there is a very large ecosystem of, different ways to raise and different businesses and different industries raising in different ways. Because I mean, one thing we talked about is you're not really going to raise from a crowd, but some companies, I'll use the board game example, they really do want to raise from a crowd. They want to get new people interested in the product because they're doing market validation right there, and
Right.
they're learning about who their customer is. So different raises look very different, and I think there's no one size fits all to crowdfunding. So there is a need for a lot of education about a lot of different aspects of how it can work into a business plan.
So if somebody wanted to learn more and they wanted to do a deep dive into crowdfunding to understand, what are some of the options? What's available out there for them to be able to educate themselves?
Yeah. First of all, I'm a YouTube University person, so there are tons of people on YouTube talking about their stories of going through a raise.
That's you.
And I find that a really great place to look.
Yeah.
All of the platforms individually kind of have their own education pages that's
Okay.
going to be specific to their platform. But I know, I think it's like help.indiegogo.com. Someone fact check me on that. But like they all have their own pages where they can talk about, not just how to use the platform, but crowdfunding in general. How does it work? What are some good strategies? And then here's your plug for your local SBDC advisor.
There you go.
There are plenty of advisors in New York State who are familiar with crowdfunding, and I would suspect in other states as well. I know for sure in Idaho because some of them were in my class with me.
Really?
So
How powerful is that? SBDC people.
There
I
we
guess I
go.
actually got that messed up on one of our episodes. I put the link for an ASBDC. Turned out it was
Something else.
Alabama, Arkansas.
Oh,
And I was
not
like, oh, it's
America's.
America's. It's America's SBDC. You guys will see it in the link in the show, in the comments below. It'll be a generalized one for the whole United States. So you can go to that link and find an SBDC that's closest to you.
And then I'll give one more education shout out because I
Please.
went through a training run by Crowdfund Better.
Ooh.
And there is, in addition to the whole ecosystem of platforms for doing fundraising, there is now a whole ecosystem of consultants who will help you with your fundraise in exchange for a fee, which is usually actually a percentage of the raise. So it's kind of a very nice aligned incentive. But I went through a training run by Crowdfund Better, and they have a lot of online courses that you can purchase that are kind of asynchronous. You can go through and just get an understanding of what exactly is crowdfunding, especially if you've never
Absolutely.
given to a campaign or even really thought about it. Just getting an idea of what are all my different options.
Would you say that different industries are better suited by different crowdfunding methods or mediums? Or is it more about the stage or the reason why you're seeking funds?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yes to the industry's question. I
Okay.
mean, but I think that I can't give you like any concrete rules of like
Sure.
this industry is better doing, donation-based crowdfunding.
Anyone that's been in business for any period of time understands that all rules aren't really rules. They're kind of
Exactly. They're
guidelines.
ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like it's a notion. It probably works most of the time, maybe some of the time. But it's everything is more fluid than that.
More fluid, but I will say, I mean, use some common sense. A rewards-based works a lot better when you have a good reward that is your product to give them. So,
Right.
if I'm a service business, rewards-based might be kind of hard for me because, I guess I can give people haircut credits.
Right.
Maybe that's a good idea, but
Right.
maybe I want to look more into that investment because,
Hmm.
I want to get people who are all over the country to donate to my raise, and I can't go all over the country giving haircuts. So it's really specific on the business type, but there is some like technology products and physical products that are new and innovative do amazing on rewards because you get people excited about the product. I've made a new pen that can write in 50 different colors, and people are like, oh, yeah, I want that. I'll give to that raise because I want to get that pen. So there's definitely, and I would say larger amounts, you probably want to do that investment. It's going to be really hard to ask someone, hey, give me $10,000 and I'll give you this pen at the end of our raise.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot easier to say, and I'll give you an 8% return on that. Um,
And it's interesting too because when you go back and you consider some of the more traditional routes, one of the things you have to prepare for and consider is having the percentage of the amount that you're requesting down. And so maybe you are seeking that $250,000 for the business. So if you understand, if you've been watching the episodes over the last couple weeks, we've talked about there's like the 10 to 20% kind of rule that you can anticipate of the amount of money that they want you to provide. If it's
mhm.
SBA, it's going to be 10 to invest yourself to come in with skin in the game. And so then you have SBA covers, 40, 50%, the bank covers the rest, and you cover 10, right? And so if you come up with this 250,000, I need to go out to crowdfund for 250. You go and crowdfund for 25, and then you start 25,000. And so then you start with the people that you know, right? And
Mhm.
then in that way, would you in that realm, would you recommend going through a crowdfunding platform? Or how would you like if I'm going to my friends and my family?
Um, it's a good question. I'm not sure if I have a clear answer for you. I think that there's a lot of benefits to using the platform. I mean,
Mhm.
payment processing alone can
Right.
drive you a little crazy. You don't want to be collecting a bunch of checks and whatnot. And I think that, whatever works for you is probably the best way to do it.
Right.
Um, One thing though, I do want to mention that when you were talking about bank loans,
Mhm.
a great way to demonstrate some traction and interest in the business is to have a successful crowdfunding campaign first.
Right.
So if you can go to that banker and you say, yes, I've only invested, 5,000 myself, but I raised 30,000 from crowdfunding,
Right.
that banker's ears are perking up. They're listening. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
even more enticing if you came up with 35 on your own.
yeah,
Because yeah, it's the same dollar amount, but look at how it was generated. This
exactly.
is
Look
from
at all the people who are now aware of the business and kind of interested and invested in it. Look at maybe you have a bunch of pre-orders or a bunch of rewards to deliver on. Like
Mhm.
all of that shows you're going to hit the ground running kind of day one.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
This is very insightful.
happy to.